Thank you.
Friends, any queries regarding the TDS payment or TDS return filing? Because this is the last class of compliance part, and TDS certificates is based on the filing of TDS return. So that's what we discussed in the last class as well. If there are any doubts, we can take that up.
Oh, I don't, because I didn't see it, sir, because that's why I'm not able to ask you any questions. If I'm getting in, definitely I'll inform through mail, sir. I'll
Sure.
ask you.
So this is the last topic, and what we discussed during my last 2-3 session as an what are the responsibilities of the deductors, right? So we discussed about the deduction, then payment, then filing of TDS returns. So last part was issuing TDS certificates, right? So what are TDS certificates and why they are to be issued? First, we need to understand that what is TDS certificate and why they are to be issued. So I'll just take an example. For example, I have to make payment to Ridhima, right? For example, I have to make payment of 5,000 to Ridhima, and Ridhima has to make this payment to someone else. Let's take an example. She has to pay this amount to Rahul, right? So Ridhima asks me, Tarun, you can make this payment directly to the Rahul, and I paid this 5,000 to Rahul. So now what is the proof available with Ridhima that this payment has already been made to Rahul? How she will substantiate, or how I will substantiate that I have already paid this amount to Rahul on behalf of Ridhima? Okay. So for this purpose, I'll just ask a certificate from Rahul that on Ridhima's behalf, I have paid this much amount to you. So basically, I'll ask a certificate from Rahul that you have received 5,000 on behalf of Ridhima from Tarun. So that's what TDS certificate is basically. So if I replace Rahul with the government, so here Tarun is a deductor, right? And Ridhima is a deductee. And Tarun has deducted a tax of 5,000, TDS of 5,000 from a payments made to Ridhima. Now I have deposited this amount with the government on the 7th of the next month, right? And on a quarterly basis, I have also filed the return of TDS. I have also filed the TDS return with the government in the relevant forms. We have discussed about the 9 TDS return forms, and in one of the form, I have filed that return. Okay. So now what will be the proof that this amount has actually been deposited with the government, and how Ridhima will substantiate? Because Ridhima has to claim credit of this TDS while filing her income tax return. So that's very important for her to get a proof from Tarun that you have already deposited this much amount to the government on my behalf. So here I'll ask for a TDS certificate from the government. Here I'll ask a TDS certificate from the government. So basically deductor will get a TDS certificate from the government that he will issue to the deductee. Okay. So that is the responsibility of the deductor, to get a TDS certificate from the government and issue it to the deductee that this TDS has already been deposited to you on this deductee's behalf, and she can claim the credit of that TDS in her income tax return. So that is just an evidence. So basically that will substantiate on Ridhima's behalf that this much tax has already been paid against her PAN number. So because while filing the TDS payment, I have not mentioned any PAN number. I just made the payment through Tracy's portal. And after, while filing the TDS return, I also mentioned her PAN number, right? We mentioned the PAN number of deductee and what was the nature of payment, what was the amount paid. All these details were mentioned in the TDS return. Now I'll get, after filing the TDS return, that TDS return will be processed by the government. Then I'll get a TDS certificate from the government. And as a deductor, I will issue that certificate to the deductee, wherein all these details will come: who is the deductor, who is the deductee, what is the amount paid to the deductee, what is the amount of TDS deducted, and these all details will be mentioned on the TDS certificate. So that TDS certificate will be a proof for Ridhima that this much tax has already been paid on her behalf, and she can claim the credit of those taxes in her income tax return. Right. So this is what TDS certificate exactly is. So now what we need to learn in today's class is what will be the learning outcomes. What is TDS certificate? We have already understood, I think. Then what are the types of TDS certificate? Like while seeing the TDS return, we have seen there are 9 types of TDS return. So similarly, there are 6 types of TDS certificates. Then what are the time limits to issue the TDS certificates? By when the TDS certificates are required to be issued, right? Again, there will be many timelines which you need to reconcile against the payment of TDS, then filing of TDS return, then issuing of TDS certificates. Then what if I don't issue TDS certificate? What will be the consequences? Because it is the responsibility of the deductor to issue TDS certificate to the deductee. Since this is the proof basis which she will be claiming the TDS credit in her income tax return, right? So what will be the consequences if TDS certificates are not issued to her? Then there is a practical part, how to issue TDS certificate, right? So mainly there are 5 things which we need to learn in today's class. What is TDS certificate? What are types of TDS certificate? What are timelines? What will be the consequences, and how to get the TDS certificate? So these details will be basically for TDS as well as TCS certificate. So we'll be covering both the things, how to get the TDS certificate and how to get the TCS certificates. So this is the basic theme of today's chapter, what we'll be going to discuss in today's lecture. So first I'm coming to what are the types of TDS certificates. So if anyone would like to answer what were the types of TDS returns, there were 9 forms. If anyone can recall, we have taken class I think 2-3 days back. So what were the types of TDS return? Any forms numbers you remember?
It's 24.
Yes, it started from 24.
24Q.
Yes.
24.
26Q, 27Q.
Yes.
27QC.
So it was 24Q, 26Q, 27Q. These were the quarterly returns, right? 27EQ was for TCS. Then we started with the 26QB, QC, QD, QE, QF.
QF.
Right?
And 24G.
24G was for government deductors, right? So these were the 9 TDS forms and 1 TCS return forms. So Ridhima was wrong. I think she said you were not able to answer, but I am getting the answers.
No, ma'am asked about 194 something that we don't know, sir. Actually, we should accept our fault, actually. We couldn't recollect it. It's our fault only. Yeah, we'll revise it. It's ma'am said correct, actually. Ma'am asked, we couldn't reply it, actually, on time.
So similarly, there are 6 types of TDS certificates, right? So it has a starting from form 16, then 16A, 16B, 16C, 16D, and then 16E. So there are 6 types of TDS certificates which are to be issued by the deductor to the deductee depending upon the nature of the payment made. Okay, so these are, and each certificate has to be issued at different frequency. There are different time limits for issuing these certificates. So first we need to understand for which purpose which certificate is to be issued. So form 16 is basically TDS on salary. So it is salary certificate. So I think you all must have heard the name of form 16 many times. We need to file the ITR. First document we generally tax consultant ask for, please give us your form 16. So because it has details of a breakup of salary of employee and all the details, what all allowances are exempt, what is salary structure, what is the TDS deducted, has it been deposited. So it contains the details of annual salary breakup. So form 16 is the basic document which we ask for from the employees and salaried class, which is issued by their employer, who is a deductor. And that has to be downloaded from the government portal. That is very important thing which you all need to remember. Earlier, these TDS certificates were issued manually. But now these all certificates are to be downloaded from that traces portal. Traces portal, right?
Yes.
If anyone issues your manual TDS certificate, so there are chances there might be some error, because anything can be entered manually in any certificate issued, but only the valid TDS certificate is which is downloaded from the traces portal. So while getting any form 16 from the deductor, you as a deductee, you always need to ensure that the TDS certificate has been downloaded from the traces portal. So how it looks like, I'll just show you a sample TDS certificates, how the TDS certificates downloaded from the traces portal looks like. But sometimes people come to us that they submit the manual TDS certificates. And when we cross-check it with their 26AS and annual information statement, taxpayer information statement, it does not match. So while issuing a manual certificate, anything can be mentioned by the deductor, right? So it is very important to get a TDS certificate downloaded from the traces portal. Now, what is Form 16? It is basically for TDS certificate other than salary. If I say salary certificate is against the TDS return filed in Form 24Q, right? TDS return is filed in Form 24Q for salaried people, and TDS certificate is issued in Form 16 to the salaried people. Then 16A is for TDS deducted on payments other than salary, and corresponding TDS returns were Form 26Q and Form 27Q. 26Q was for payment made other than salary, and 27Q was for payment made to the non-residents, right? Then 16B is for TDS deducted under 194 IA. 16C is for 194 IB. 16D is for 194 M, and 16E is for 194 S. Okay. So for this section, 16B, 16C, 16D, 16E, TDS certificate is issued. So what was the return form for 194 IA? 26 QB, 26 QC, 26 QD, then 26 QE for crypto, right? Form 16E is for TDS certificate on crypto. 16B is for 194 IA. What is 194 IA? It is TDS on the purchase of property, for which we had filed the TDS return in Form 26 QB. I think Bhagwati ma'am has asked in the last class how to file these monthly TDS return forms. So 26 QB, QC, QD, QE were the monthly TDS forms, which were not filed through a utility, but directly through that TDS portal, right?
Directly making payment, sir.
Yes, yes. It was a Challan cum return form. It is a single form through which the payment was made and through by which the details were deductor and deductive were mentioned. So 26 QB is a TDS return for the purchase of property, and TDS certificate is to be issued in Form 16B. And then 194 IB is for rental payments. Rental payments, and TDS return is to be filed in Form 26 QC, and TDS certificate is to be issued in Form 16C. Okay. And 194 for what purpose is 194M? It is for professional payments. Okay. So 26 QD is the TDS return form, and certificate is to be issued in Form 16D, and 26 QE and QFR TDS return for payment made towards crypto, purchase of crypto by crypto buyer, and TDS certificate is to be issued in Form 16E. So in your book, you will only find Form 16, 16A, 16B, 16C, 16D, but 16E will not be there. Okay. So you can write it down. 16E is for crypto, and it was introduced after your class commenced. So your modules were written before that, and 16E form was introduced post that.
So this crypto forms will be submitted by the creator or sender?
It is again altogether separate topic. For that, you need to understand section 194S.
Okay, sir.
So
okay.
It is basically buyer who has to deduct the TDS. Buyer of crypto, because since he is paying the making the payment to the seller, and TDS, the concept of TDS is payment has to be made by the payer, right? The payer
Okay.
has to deduct the TDS and it has to
Okay.
deposit with the government. So there are many permutation combination. If you read the section
So
194,
we have to read separately this one. I think it will be very difficult.
yes, I think they will take up in the level 2 of your course. This section might be taken in the level 2. In fact,
Yes,
all TDS sections were not covered in the level 1 of this course. Only the important ones were covered. And this is again an important section and can be taken up at level 2.
Okay, sir.
So these are the 6 TDS certificates which are to be issued by the deductor to the deductee. Now, before I come to what are the time limits, I think we have understood what is TDS certificate and what are the types of TDS certificate. Before I come to the time limits and consequences, I'll just take you through how to download the TDS certificates, how to download and how to issue these TDS certificates to the deductee. So deductor has to download these TDS certificates from the Traces portal, and how these TDS certificates are to be downloaded. We will just learn that. So again, you need
Sir,
to
Form 16 roll we used to, as a employee, we used to download and we used to take it, no? But you are saying for other certificates or what?
no, for all TDS certificates, the deductor has to download from Traces portal and then issue it to the deductee. This is for all TDS certificates.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
So you need to visit the website tdscpc.gov.in. Okay. So this is the website for downloading the. Earlier, while I showed you the payment and that filing of form 26 QB, QC, QD, QE, what was that website? It was no TDS CPC. So by now you must have gone through multiple websites. So which one was that?
TINNSDL.com.
Yes, it was TIN NSDL website. And once we prepared that FBU file, at which website we had uploaded it?
Uploaded.
So it was income tax e-filing website,
Yes, sir.
incometax.gov.in.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, yes, sir.
So this is the, I think, first time you must be interacting with this website, or while creating the login, if there was, I think, a session, how to
Yes,
create the login.
we have done, sir.
You have understood,
Registration
right?
done.
This is the TDS CPC website through which the TDS certificates are downloaded, right?
Okay.
So you need to go here, login. So there are 2 types of login, as a deductor or as a taxpayer. So we need to log in a category of deductor. Okay. So I have logged in. You need to go to the download section. Okay. So here you are getting the option to submit the request to download form 16, form 16A. 16B, 16C, 16D, and 16E are not there, right? So this login will be used to download form 16 and 16A. And how to download form 16B, 16D, C, 16D? While we were logging in, we selected the option to log in as a deductor. So if you want to download form 16B, 16C, 16D, you need to log in as a taxpayer, because for those section, it is not mandatory to have a TAN number, right? So it is not mandatory to have a TAN number to file a TDS return under 194IA, IB, and 194M. So these are taxpayer-based login through which you can download 16B, 16C, 16D. For form 16 and 16A, it is mandatory to have a TAN number and log in as a deductor. So I'll just show you how to. So basically, while downloading form 16, these TDS certificates in form 16 and 16A, you need to visit the TDS CPC portal. So first step is to submit request. You need to submit the request to download these certificates. Then you need to have a utility. Remember, we have learned those utilities while filing those TDS returns. We downloaded the utility of form 24Q and 26Q, 27Q. Similarly, you need to have a utility to extract these TDS certificates. There is a utility at TDS CPC portal which you need to download, and through that you can extract those TDS certificates, and then you can issue those TDS certificates to the deductee. So again, it is a 3-step process. First of all, you need to submit the request to download. Then you need to get that utility to extract those TDS certificates. Then you need to issue those TDS certificates to the deductee. So now we are going to the first step, that how to submit the request. How deductor has to submit request to download the TDS certificate from that government portal, which is Traces. So you need to go to the download section and click on the downloading form 16A or form 16, whatever you are downloading. And here is a form 27D. So what is form 27D? So these were the 6 types of TDS certificates. So TCS certificate has to be issued in form 27D. It is a single form. So there are not multiple forms or certificates in which TCS certificate is issued. It is form 27D. So it is only a single form. So there are 6 types of TDS certificates and only a single type of TCS certificate, form 27D. So here you can see.
Sir, excuse me, sir. For TCS certificate also 10 number is compulsory.
Yes, 10 number is compulsory. It is for while depositing, even you need the 10 number. While filing the TCS return, you need the 10 number. And while downloading the certificates, also you need a 10 number. So it is not only what is the full form of 10 number? It is tax deduction and collection account number, right? So it is used for deduction as well as collection. So for both the purposes, you need to have a 10 number for TDS as well as TCS. So now we are going to the first step, that is submitting the request to download the form 16 or TDS certificate, what we call. So process is similar for downloading form 16, 16A and form 27D. I'll just show you through one form, form 16A. So here they have provided the 2 types of option. Either you can download this form for a single deductee, or I can download these certificates for the multiple deductees, for all the deductees for which I have filed the TDS return in form 26Q, right? So if you want to download for a single deductee, the details need to be filled in here. You need to select the financial year for which you want to download this certificate, then for quarter for which you want to download this certificate, then form type, right? It can be either for form 26Q or form 27Q. I have written here as well that other than salaries for form 26Q or form 27. So then you need to mention the PAN number of the deductee for which you want to download, right? So the other alternative and better option is bulk PAN download. You can download for all the deductees in a single go. Okay. For example, I am selecting for the financial year 21-22, which was the last financial year. And then for the quarter 4, Q4, I will select, and then I will select form 26Q. Then you need to click on the go, right? So these will be the details which will be printed. These details are auto fetched from the profile section, that who is the authorized person. So basically in a company, the CFO or the finance person or the accounts department concerned person's name is mentioned, who is issuing you TDS certificate on the behalf of that company. So company cannot issue the certificates on its own behalf. There might be some natural person who will be issuing that TDS certificate, and in what capacity. So for in our case, in a company, Coherent Advisor Private Limited, he is the director. It's his father's name and what is his designation and what is place wherein he is residing and what is the date on which this request is submitted, right? So these are the basic details which it is showing. If you want to change, you can change through this profile section. Here you can change all these details. But since we need not to change, I'll just submit the request. Now, they will show you 2 options. One is you want to submit that request through a digital signature or through a normal KYC validation. Since as of now, I'm not having his digital signature token, So I'll just submit this request through a normal KYC option. If you have a DSC, that is a more easier way to submit that request. You just need to attach that DSC token with your system and affix that DSC here, and then the request will be submitted. If you go by a normal KYC, it will ask few more details from you. I'll click on the proceed. So these are the details which it will be asking from you. So this authentication code you need not to fill here. This is the token number or provisional receipt number, which will be your which will be mentioned on the return filed by you. If you have filed a form 26Q, it will have a receipt number or return number will be mentioned on that. I will show you. So this is the form 26Q which we had submitted for the last quarter. So this is the acknowledgement of that form, right? So here you can see that number, that receipt number, RR number. That number needs to be filled in here. Okay. I'll just copy it from here. So that is the number you need to fill in for submitting the request through a normal KYC process. Then it is asking for a challan details. So during that quarter, you can mention the details of any one challan details you need to fill in here. So I have saved that challan separately. So during last quarter, for the month of Feb, this was the challan we had deposited. So details from this challan you need to mention there. So what details it is asking? First one is BSR code. So here is the BSR code, right? 6390340. Okay. So what is the date on which tax is deposited? 5th of March 22. So here is the date which you need to mention there. So date has to be mentioned in this format. So date, then month. So month has to be written like this. So for example, in our case, it is deposited in the March. So I need to mention MAR, right? So then you need to mention the year. This is the format which will be used. 05 202. So in this format, you need to mention the date. Then you need to mention the challan number. So here is the challan number 39367. Challan amount. So challan is for 750 rupees. So I'll mention that. So again, challan number has to be mentioned like this. Amount, then 0.00. Okay. So this is the format to be used for mentioning this challan. So there is no CD record number in our case. So I'll leave this field in blank. So then you need to enter these details. So we had filled in our form 26Q PAN number of the deductees and total amount deposited against those deductees, right? So I need to mention that against this challan of 750 rupees, this was deposited against which deductee and what was the amount deducted against that deductee. So these details you need to mention. So for example, this challan of 750 was deposited for two deductees in my case. So I'll mention their PAN number and I'll mention what was the amount deposited against that PAN number. Okay. So I have noted that down.
Sir, if it is thousands or 2000s of employees, then they will fix the digital signature only, no? It will be easy for them to.
So it is again easy, and only any three details are to be mentioned in here, not more than that.
Okay.
Even if you are going by normal KYC process, so any three details you can mention. So for example, if challan is deposited for 1000 deductees.
But only
right?
three we have to mention it.
Only three you have to mention.
Okay.
So that is, I think, feasible.
Oh, 1000 instead of 1003 will be better.
Any three can be mentioned here. So that is PAN of the first deductee. So 450 out of 750 was deducted against this PAN number, and 300 was deducted against this PAN number. So our challan amount was 750, right? So this is the first deductee against which we had deducted the 450, and this is the second deductee against which we had deducted the 300 rupees. So I have mentioned, since in my case this challan was against only 2 deductees, so I have mentioned only those 2 deductees, not 3, right? If it challan would have been for 3 deductees or more, then only the 3 deductees are to be mentioned here. Then I'll click on the proceed. So it has taken me to the next page. So I can copy this code. I'll proceed with the transaction and my request is submitted. So this status message will be displayed that your request has been submitted. So these certificates are not available immediately. Sometimes they take half an hour to 15-20 minutes, or sometimes 4 to 5 to 6 hours to get downloaded. So we have completed the first step, which was submitting the request, right? So request for form 16A has been submitted. Your request number is this. The file will be available in the download section. Now where I'll go to download these certificates? I'll go to the requested downloads since I have submitted the request. So this was our first process to submit the request. How I submitted? I visited the TDS CPC portal. Then I logged in as a deductor. Then I went to the download section. Then you're based on your requirement, you can select form 16, 16A or 27D. For whatever form you have selected, you need to select whether you want to download for a single deductee or for bulk deductees, right? You can select any one option. Then you need to select that option and relevant financial year, relevant quarter, form for which you are downloading those certificate, 24Q, 26Q, 27Q or 27EQ. There could be any of these forms. Since 24Q is for form 16, 26Q and 27Q are form 16A, and 27EQ was TCS return,
TCS.
and it will be for form 27D, right? So you can submit request for any of these. Then you need to select the mode, whether you want to submit as a digital signature KYC, DSC based, or a normal KYC. In the normal KYC, you need to mention the receipt number, that is RR number of that form. Then you
BSR
need
number.
Challan details. Challan details will have BSR code, SIN number, that is Challan identification number, date of deposit is. So all these details you need to mention. Then against that Challan, who were the deductees? So you need to mention the any 3 deductees against that particular Challan. Then your request will be submitted. So this was the first step to download the TDS or TCS certificates, right? I think we have understood this part, how to submit the request to download through Traces portal. So TDS certificate or TCS certificates are only valid if they are downloaded through Traces portal.
Sir, one thing. Sir, at the end of the financial year, can we download in one form the whole year's form 16?
So I think what at the beginning of the class I have mentioned. So what is TDS certificate? What are types of TDS certificates? Now we are how to download the TDS certificate. I'll come to the time limits. What are the time limits to issue TDS or TCS certificates, right? Since some of the returns are to be filed quarterly, some are to be filed monthly. So there are different time limits to issue different TDS certificates. So based on those time limits, you need to download those TDS certificates from the Traces portal and issue them to the deductees. So now coming to the second step, downloading that utility to extract those TDS certificates. Okay. So I have gone to that download section. Then I have into the requested downloads. So here you can see that to generate form 1616A transaction based report in form 2017 PDF format or justification report, you need to have traces generation utility. Okay, so here is the link to download the utility. So here you need to click here to download that utility, which will be used to extract those TDS certificates. So I'll click here. So there are multiple utilities which the option is available. So I'll download the first utility, which is for form 16A or form 16 part. So I'll download that utility. So it is in zip folder. I'll extract that. So this is the Java file which you need to open. So this is the utility through which that certificates will be extracted. Okay. So this was the second step in our process of downloading and issuing TDS or TCS certificate. First one was submitting request, then downloading utility through which these TDS certificates will be extracted. Right. So this is the utility part which we have understood. Now I'll come to how to extract those certificates and how to issue those certificates. So now I need to go again to that download section and requested downloads. So while we submitted the request, there was a request number that was generated, right? You can mention that request number here and click on the go. It will show that what is the status of your request that you submitted for downloading those form 16. The other option is you can mention the date. It will show the date on which this the requests were, multiple requests were, if any, submitted. I'll select the view all. I'll select the view all. So today we have submitted these two certificates. So both the requests are processed, right? So my forms are available and ready to download. So I need to click here and then I need to click on the HTTP download. I've selected the row, then I'll click on the HTTP download. So here all those certificates are now downloaded, which are in a zip file. So this is the file in which those TDS certificates are downloaded. Now I need to go to that utility to extract the files from those zip file. So this utility will extract those certificates from those zip file. I'll browse and select the path.
So this utility will be in our system, right?
Yes, that you need to download from that portal and you will extract the utility. Then you need to select the path of that file downloaded for that form 16A, which is in my downloads section, right? So it was one, two, four, 5, 3, 0. So these are the certificates. I'll select the zip file, then click on the OK. So you need to submit the password for that info file. That is the TAN number of the deductor, which you need to mention here. Okay. So you need to select the folder in which you want to save those certificates. I'll select the folder of today's class. It will create here. So you can manually sign those certificates or you can also sign them digitally. If you want to sign this certificate digitally, you need to attach the digital signature and sign these certificates. Since I am not having a digital certificate of that director with me, so I'll just click on the proceed. So it is asking me, do you want to continue without digital? I'll say yes. So it has started the PDF generation. So here it has extracted these two certificates, right? We have mentioned the details of those two deductives against which the TDS was deducted. So these are the form 16A of the parties. Form 16A, PAN number of the party, quarter, and then the assessment year is mentioned here. So this is the process to extract these certificates from that utility. And now you can send this certificate to the deductive, which will act as a proof for them that this amount has been actually deposited with the government, and basis this certificate in form 16A, deductive can claim the credit of TDS in his or her income tax return. Okay.
So can you show that certificate?
Yes, I can show you that. I hope I am not hampering the privacy of those deductives.
We are not seeing that, sir. Just we want to know how it will be. That's all.
I'm just joking. I'm not much worried about that. In any case, you won't be able to claim the credit. Only the deductive will be able to claim the credit of this TDS in his or her income tax return, right? So
it will be same like as form 16 only, no?
Yes. So this is form 16A. It is downloaded from the Traces portal of Government of India Income Tax Department. It is not a manual certificate, right? So it is showing the name of that deductor. Here is the name of the deductor. Here is the name of the deductive whose TDS is deducted at his address. Then here is the PAN of the deductive. Here is the PAN of the PAN of the deductor, TAN of the deductor, and then the PAN of the deductive, right? So it is showing the assessment year for which this TDS certificate, which was financial year 21-22, and assessment year is 22-23. Then period, we had selected the quarter 4 of the financial year 21-22, right? So what is the period? 1st Jan 22 to 31st March 22. So it is showing the summary of all payments made during this quarter and what all TDS were deducted during this quarter. So what was the amount paid to this deductor? So it was 18,000. 4 times we had paid 4,500 to this deductor during this quarter. So what was the nature of payment? It was 194J, that is professional services. That is deductive reference number. These are the date of payment or credit on which the TDS deducted. Remember, in the first class we have discussed that date on which the TDS is to be deducted. It was 27th June, I remember. Well, that was the date of deduction in our case, right? So here is the quarter. In the above section, it was the amount of the payments made. What was the payment made? It was the 18,000. It is not showing the amount of the tax deducted. It is only showing the what was the amount and nature of the payment. It is summary of payments. Here it is showing the details of tax deducted. Details of tax deducted and deposited in the central government account through Challan, right? So against each 4,500, we have deducted the 10% TDS, that is 450, 4 times. What is the BSR code of those challans through which this particular tax is deducted? What is the date of depositing that challan? What is challan serial number through which that tax is deposited? And what is the status of challan? So F is not fail here, it is final. So F reflects the final, that challan is final. So there is no mismatch, right? So this is the form 16A. So this is a foolproof evidence for the deductive against which he can claim that TDS in his income tax return. So here is the verification tab. So he was the concerned person who is the director. The responsibility of deducting was lying with him, his father's name, his designation. It is showing that he certified that sum of 1,800, that is TDS amount, which has been paid, deposited to the credit of central government And again, he is giving the declaration of trueness, completeness, and correctness of this certificate. And what is the date of issuing that certificate? So this is the place, New Delhi. And then here is the date, today's date. Since these certificates are downloaded today from the Traces portal, it is showing the date 19th of July 22, right? So here's the name. So if I would have selected the option to digitally sign while extracting those certificates from the utility, so herein it would have shown the digitally sign. Since we had not signed it digitally, we need to sign it manually and then issue these certificates to the deductee. Okay, so this is form 16. In the similar way, you will see the form 16 or form 27D, form 16B, 16C, 16D, 16E, all will have a similar structure. Only in form 16, there are two parts, part A and part B. In all other form, it is a single certificate. There are no two parts. All other certificates will look similar to you. Form 16A, 16B, 16C, 16D, 16E, and 27D will be look like this. But in form 16, there are two parts, part A and part B. Part A is only these details will be shown in the part A of form 16, which we are able to see in this form 16A. So this is basically part A of the form 16. And in part B of form 16, there will be a salary breakup for the entire year. I'll just show you form 16 of anyone. Just 1 minute. So here is the form 16, right? So here is the part A, right? So form 16 has two parts. So again, all the details which you were seeing at the form 16A are mentioned on the part A of form 16. This is the amount paid to that person, that is 19,39,868. This is his annual salary, right? So this is the salary paid by the company to the employee. Form 16 is for that purpose. Again, those tax deposit detail which I had shown you in the form 16, right? So these details are mentioned in the part A of form 16. So what is on the part B? So part B has the salary breakup for the entire year. Assessment year period is 1st April 21 to 31st March 22. This is his gross salary. Okay. So this is his house rent allowance, HRA, what we call HRA. All the allowances will be deducted. So these all details you will learn while learning how to compute the income from salary. So all the details will be shown to you that how to compute. But all this computation is disclosed in the part B of form 16, which is issued by employer to employee. Basis on this form 16, we file the income tax return of that person. Okay.
Sir, other details also, heads of income, other income also it will be mentioned, no, through intimation 16. To the
yes, if the
employee declared something, that will be shown here also.
Yes, that will be mentioned. For example, if you see in this case, this person has loss under the head house property. So he has given the declaration to that employer. So yes, this has also been shown. So it is up to employee. If he wants, he wish, he can give the declaration to the employer, and employer will consider those details while in his form 16. So this is the practical process to download the form 16 and 16A or 27D, 16B, 16C, 16D, 16E from the portal. The process is similar for all these forms. Now I'll just go through that chapter. So before that, I think I'll just let you know what are the dates to issue those TDS or TCS certificates. Form 16 is to be issued annually, once a year. That is, certificate for TDS on salary is to be issued annually for entire year, since it will have details of the salary paid to that employee during the entire year. Okay. So Form 16 is to be issued only once during a year. Then Form 16A is to be issued quarterly. It is to be issued quarterly.
Sir,
Yeah.
if any one-time consultancy any we have done, then when we have to issue the certificate? 3 months. After 3 months only, we used to issue the certificate to the person.
Right. I'll just telling the frequency. I'll let you know the dates when these certificates are to be issued. Right.
Yes.
And Form 16B, 16C, 16D are to be issued monthly. These are the monthly. 16A is annually, 16A is quarterly, 16B, 16C, 16D, 16E are monthly. So Form 16 is issued for which TDS return form? It is Form 24Q. So what was the due date to file Form 24Q for the last quarter? Last quarter of the financial year, what is the due date to file the Form 24Q?
2 months, sir. 31st May, sir?
Yes, it was 31st May. So herein the Form 16 can only be issued after that, right? It cannot be issued before that, since this is to be issued annually. So it has to be issued 15 days from that end of that date, right? So in our case, it is to be issued by 15th of June. Since that TDS return in Form 24Q is to be filed by 31st May and TDS certificate is to be issued by 15th of June. So for example, for financial year 21-22, Form 24Q is to be filed by 31st May 22 and Form 16 is to be issued by 15th of June 22. Now 16A. 16A is to be issued against which TDS returns? Form 26Q and Form 27Q. These certificates are issued quarterly, right? So what is the due date for every quarter to file those 26Q and 27Q?
Sir, 1 month from the end of the quarter.
Yes, 1 month from the end of the quarter. For first quarter, it is 31st of July. Then for Q2, it is 31st October. Then for Q3, it is 31st January. But for quarter 4, it was not 1 month, but 2 months, right?
2 months.
31st May. So these Form 16A are to be issued by 15 days from the date of filing of those TDS return. So it is to be issued by 15th of August, then October, November, 15th of November, then 15th of Feb, then 15th of June, right? 15 days from the due date of filing of that TDS return, the TDS certificates in Form 16A are to be issued. So Form 16 and 16A are clear, right? Now coming to these monthly forms. So these are issued against which TDS return? 26 QB, QC, QD, and QA. Against these, what was the due date to file these forms? What was the due date to file this Form 26 QB, QC, QD, and QE? TDS return in these forms.
Sir?
We have understood the Form 16A, right? Form 16 is
30 days, sir.
30 days, right? Form 16B, 16C, 16D, 16E are to be filed. Sorry, 26 QB, QC, QD, Q are to be filed by 30 days from which date? 30 days from the end of the month in which tax is deducted, right? So plus 15 days here as well. So TDS certificates are to be issued in 45 days from the end of the month in which tax is deducted. Okay. So
15 days after filing.
15 days. So 30 days are 30 days is period for filing of the TDS return. So 15 days are grace period to issue those certificates. So it comes out to 45 days total. 45 days are allowed to issue those TDS certificate. I'll just give you example. For example, for the month of June, let's take an example for the month of May 22. What will be the due date to file that TDS return in form 26 QB? By when the TDS return is to be filed?
May or June, sir, it is?
So TDS return is to be filed by 30th June. Right.
And certificate is to be issued by
15th of July.
Right. So 45 days from the end of the month in which tax is deducted. Now I'll take another example here. Suppose tax is deducted in the month of June 22. What will be the date to file that TDS return?
31st July.
No, there are 30 days, not 31 days. It is not month, it is 30 days. Right. So TDS return is to be filed by
July
30th July. So by when the TDS certificates are to be issued here?
It is 14th of August.
Right. So here the date is not 15th August, but
it is simply 15 days.
15 days. So it is 45 days from the end of the month in which tax is deducted.
Yes, sir.
Right. So I think the dates are clear for the TDS certificates.
Yes, sir.
So now for TCS certificates, form 27D. So TDS return was filed in form 27. What was the form to file TCS return? There were two forms. Check in your book. It will just revise your concepts. You don't have book?
Yes, sir. 24G and 27 EQ.
Yes, 24G was for government deductor and 27 EQ was for non-government deductors, right? So generally everyone forgets the forms and dates of TCS, but they remember for TDS, since TDS is quite more popular. But since we are learning for exam purpose as well, we need to remember the names of these forms and dates for TCS as well, right? What were the due dates to file that form 27 EQ? It was filed quarterly. It was 15 days from the end of the quarter, right? For the Q1, it was 15th of July. For Q2, it was for 15th of October, then 15th of January. And what was date for last quarter? 15th of May, right? Am I right? What was the date for last quarter? So here is your here are dates to file the TDS return. For quarter one, it is 15th of July. Q2 was 15th October. Q3 15th of January, and then Q4 it was May 15th. For last quarter, they have generally provided the extended period, right? So now by when the certificate in form 27D is to be issued, it has to be issued by.
So for last quarter, it is 1.5 months, right?
Right. So Form 27D is to be issued 15 days from this date, right? For Q1, the date will come 30th of July. For Q2, the date will come 30th of October. For Q3, the date will come 30th of January. And for Q4, date will come 30th of May. So these are dates to issue the TCS certificate in Form 27D. So last part of our today's discussion, we have learned what are the TDS TCS certificate types, 6 types of TDS certificate and 1 type of TCS certificate. We have learned how, we have learned when. Now what will be the consequences if deductor not issues or downloads TDS certificate from the traces portal? What will be the consequences? He will be charged with the penalty under section 272 capital A. So what is the penalty? Penalty is 100 rupees per day. Penalty is 100 rupees per day for non-issuing TDS or TCS certificate to the deductees. Okay. So this is the consequences of non-issuing TDS certificate. So now we'll go through the chapter.
So any upper limit is there for penalty?
No upper limit under 272 capital. It is 100 rupees per day. So now I'll just go through chapter. So chapter says the TDS certificate, the person who is required to deduct tax at source shall issue TDS certificate to the deductee, right? Who is required to deduct tax at source. We have taken example in our case. Taxman was required to deduct tax at source, shall issue a TDS certificate. So TDS certificates, there are 6 types of TDS certificate, 16 to 16E, right? To the deductee, for example, to Ridhima, they need to issue the TDS certificate for the payments made. I am taking example of Ridhima in every case, so she will be after my life whether the entire payment is made by taxman to the only to the her. All other faculties are not getting any payment. So it will specify the amount and rate of TDS and such other particulars as may be prescribed. So what all particulars were on the form 16A? It was the name of deductor, name of deductee, PAN of deductor, then PAN of deductee, amount paid, sections and nature of payment, then what was the amount of TDS deducted, against which challan this TDS was deposited. All these details were on that TDS certificate. So now TDS certificate shall be downloaded in the prescribed form. So forms we have learned from the website of traces. So only TDS certificate downloaded from this websites are valid. Manual TDS certificates are not valid. The TDS certificate shall be issued in the following form. So we have understood what is form 16, which is issued for salary. So she has asked you question about section 192. What is section 192? It is TDS on salary. Yes. So from the employee's salary,
we'll create one Excel sheet linking of section and forms and returns also.
And
so
the
that
due dates.
entire due dates. So that entire Excel sheet we can revise 2 to 3 chapters simultaneously.
Yes. All the TDS related chapters I think can be
it should be in
a
one
single Excel file. That will be best way to remember.
Yes sir.
And in case you forget, you can watch out the last 5-7 minutes of my class. I think the payment part and TDS return and TDS certificate I'll just summarize at the end of every class.
Yes, sir.
How to do.
Tarun sir, sorry to interrupt you. Can you please little zoom in the PDF?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, it's perfect. Thank you so much.
So as I have informed you, the TDS certificate in form 16 has two parts, Part A and Part B. I've shown you a sample form 16. Part A contains the details of the tax deducted on salary, whereas Part B contains the details of the salary. It is breakup of the salary paid during the entire year, allowances, deductions, rebate, extra claimed and allowed to the employee. These
As well
all
as the
allowances.
tax computations, no?
Yeah,
As
basically
well
it
as
is a tax computation under the head salary.
its salary.
So in respect of tax deducted under section 194P, some pension to the senior citizen. So these details are mentioned. So basically form 24Q was to file TDS return for section 192 and 194P, and form 16 is for that purpose only, right? So before issuing Part A and Part B to the deductee, deductor shall authenticate the contents of the certificate. Remember, there was a declaration at the end of the certificate that everything mentioned here is true and correct to the best of my knowledge.
Yes, sir.
So it can be verified either by using a manual signature or a digital signature. Like we have downloaded without a digital signature, so we need to authenticate it by a manual certificate. The deductor shall, once the certificate is digital signed, so once they are digital signed, so no one can change that certificate, right? It is digitally signed by anyone. So other details are, I think, not much relevant for you. What is form 12B, and these are the basic details. So main thing you need to understand, form 16 has two parts, for which purpose it is issued, right? So now coming to form 16A. So where it is for TDS return filed in form 26Q or 27Q. Okay.
Then I have one query.
Yes, sir.
The returns which have been filed, you showed us one deductee or one deductee. If there are 10 or 20 deductees,
right,
we have to repeat that whole process, or it can be done in the same form itself?
It has to be done in the same form, sir. Only a single form is to be filed for all the deductees. The TDS return is to be filed in a single form. Be it for example, in a Taxmann, there are almost 1,000 employees, right?
Yeah.
So 1,000 for 1,000 employees, it will file a single form 24Q quarterly basis, wherein it will mention the details of all the employees.
Okay.
Okay. So that's where the software comes to your rescue. Right, the utility is not capable to handle such a data, and it is not manually possible to enter these details again and again. So herein, once the deduct is created in a software or a third-party software, for example, Taxmann Tds software, which I was discussing that day. So once you have created the data of Tarun Kumar in that software, you need not to repeat it again and again each quarter or every year. Once the master database of Tarun Kumar is created, you just select that Tarun Kumar, what was the amount paid to Tarun, what was the TDS deducted. Only these details are to be filled. Otherwise, in a department utility, these details are to be entered manually every time again, right? So it is in a single form, sir.
Okay, sir.
So then form 16A, it is for payments other than salary for a TDS returns filed in form 26Q and 27Q, and other than form section 194IA, IB, and 194M. For these sections, there are separate form 16B, C, and D, and you can also write section 194S, which is for crypto. A new TDS form 16E has been prescribed for this. Okay. So what details are mentioned on form 16A? I have already shown you. TAN of the deductee, TAN of the deductor. So Challan details, if Challan is paid without, so tax is paid without Challan, then it will have that book identification number, receipt of the TDS statement furnished in form 26Q or 27Q. So all these details will be on form 16A. Now coming to form 16B, it is for the tax deducted in section 194 IA, for which we file form 26QB. Right. So form 16, any person who has deducted tax under section 194 IA from the amount of consideration paid or payable to buy an immovable property shall issue a TDS certificate in form 16B. Again, this certificate has to be downloaded from Tracy's portal, but this certificate is to be downloaded as a taxpayer category, not a deductor. Form 16 and 16A are downloaded as a deductor, right? The remaining forms are to be downloaded as a taxpayer category, because to file those TDS return, we need not to have a TAN number. these are PAN based returns. So there is a relaxation for those TDS return and for those TDS certificates and for TDS payments as well. Okay. Now form 16C is to be issued for section TDS deducted under section 194 IB and TDS return filed in form 26 QC for the amount of rent paid to the landlord. Then form 16D. Form 16D is for TDS deducted under section 194M against TDS return filed in form 26 QD. So these are the TDS certificates. You can write in your book form 16E as well. It will be for TDS return filed in form 26 QE and against section 194S. Right. So this is not mentioned in your book. You can add a note here. So duplicate certificate, the deductor.
So this under by the deductee only we have to download it.
Sorry?
Which category it will become? It will come under deductor category or it will come under deductee category?
So there are two categories. So I have, as mentioned, there were two return forms, 26 QE and QF, right? QE
Yes,
was monthly return and QF was quarterly return.
Quarterly return.
So for QE purpose, you need not to have a TAN number. So it will come as a taxpayer category. Okay. And for QF return, you need to have a TAN number and that has to be filed on a quarterly basis. So it will come under a deductor category. So wherein you have a TAN number, wherein you have a requirement of TAN number, those all will every time come under a deductor category. Okay. So now coming to duplicate certificate, the deductor may issue a duplicate certificate if the deductee has lost the original certificate. So to my understanding and my mind, this provision is redundant as on date. So this was relevant when the filings were manual and certificates were issued manually. Since now the certificates are to be downloaded from a Traces portal, so what is the relevance of issuing duplicate certificate? So
we cannot download 2 or 3 times.
We can download, but there will not be mentioned a duplicate certificate.
Okay.
So, right. So every time I can issue the certificate downloaded from Traces portal, it will have the same amount and same TDS. It will not make the amount twice or thrice if I download the certificate 3 times. Getting my point?
It won't mention that you have downloaded already. Like
no,
that
it will not mention. You can download n number of times and you can issue n number of times, but the details will remain constant unless the correction statement is filed or a TDS has been revised. In all other cases, the details will remain the same. If a correction statement is filed, only the details will get changed in that case.
Okay.
So what are the due dates for issue of TDS certificate? So form 16 is required to be issued annually and by the 15th June of the financial year. So for financial year 21-22, it was to be issued by 15th June, right? Form 16 is to be issued quarterly.
Yes, sir.
So quarterly it is to be issued within 15 days from the due date of filing of TDS return in form 26Q and 27Q, right? Then form 16B, 16C, 16D are to be issued within 15 days from the due date of furnishing Challan cum statement in 26QB, QC, QD. Then what will be the total number of days that will come out? That is 45 days. That's it. 30 plus 15, right? And same is the date for form 16E as well. That is 30 plus 15. So here is the summary of due dates. Form 16 to be issued for which 192 or 194P, 15 June, that is annually once a year. Then form 16A is to be issued 15 days from the due date of furnishing of TDS statement. 16B, 16C, 16D are to be issued 45 days from the end of the month in which tax is deducted.
What is section 194P?
So
it's for pension, no sir.
Pension to the senior
citizens.
Yes.
Okay.
190. It was introduced 2 years back. Earlier, it was not in the law book. So earlier, the form 24Q TDS return was filed only for section 192. but then they added a new section 194P for the ease of senior citizens. So now that also comes along with section 192 everywhere. So what is penalty for non-issuing of TDS certificate? So if a person has failed to issue TDS certificate, so penalty will be levied under section 272 capital A, where a person who has deducted tax at source fails to issue TDS certificate, he shall be liable for payment of penalty of 100 rupees per day under section 272. Penalty is 100 rupees per day, but again it is penalty, not a fees. In the last class there were two things, fees and penalty, right? So fees is something which is mandatory in nature, but penalty is something which is discretionary in nature. It may be levied or may not be levied. It is up to the discretion of the assessing officer. Now here are the tutorials to download Form 16A from the traces. I have already explained the live demo to you. I'll just quickly run through it. You need to visit the website TDS CPC. Then you need to log in using your user ID, password, and TAN number if you are downloading as a deductor. Then go to the downloads. You need to select Form 16, 16A or Form 27D, depending upon your requirement, what you want to download. Select the financial year. You can select for a deductive wise, or you can select for a bulk PAN as well for all the deductives altogether. Right, we have opted for this option, bulk PAN download for all the deductives. You need to select the financial year and then click on the go. On the next details, there were the details of the person who was responsible for payment, right? There was a name of director of a company, his father's name and place and date were mentioned. Then there was option to do it through a digital signature KYC or a normal KYC. We had opted for a digital signature KYC, but in the tutorial in the book, they have done it through a digital signature KYC, right? So after submission of the request, you will get a confirmation message and a request number will be generated. Then once you have done that part, you need to go to the download section and requested downloads. So there is one step which is missing here is you need to download the TDS, that extraction utility, right? But why it is not mentioned here? Because we need not to download every time. If it is already in my system, I need not to go again and again and download it, right? Since it is already in my system, I need not to download. I then only need to directly download those TDS certificates. You need to click on this and then HTTP download. Then these certificates will be downloaded and extracted through that utility that we have done through. This is that utility, right? Traces PDF generation utility through which you can do. So similar processes for Form 16A you have seen for Form 16. So entire process is same for Form 16A and 27D. So since in our case only Form 2 certificates were downloaded, if there are multiple deductives, see, these all TDS certificates are downloaded and extracted through that utility, right? Now Form 16B, 16C, 16D, 16D, the process is similar. How you download, you again need to visit that traces portal. But what here you need to, if you are a new user, then you need to register as a taxpayer. So here you need to log in as a taxpayer category, not a deductor category. If you are already registered, you can directly log in. If you are doing it for the first time, you need to register at the portal first. Okay. So here is the process to get yourself register at the portal. It is not the process to download that certificate. I'm skipping this registration process since I think that must have been done in your registration related class, how to register at the portals.
So 27D also same
it is
method.
Same. So there was option of Form 16, 16A and 27D.
Okay.
So process is same.
Any forms is there, sir? Just want to show how it will be same. Details will be there for TCS also.
Yes, yes. The details are same on all these certificates. What is the nature of payment, PAN of deductor, PAN of the collective, not the deductive, yes. Right? So details are same. So once you have created a login, right? So now you need to log in at the portal as a taxpayer category, right? For our form 16A, we had done it as a deductor category. But if you are downloading form 16B, 16C, 16D, or 16E, you need to log in as a taxpayer based category. Once you have downloaded, again you need to go to the download section. Here you will get the option to submit request for form 16B, 16C, 16D. All forms are mentioned. You will click on that. You will select the relevant form type, be it 26 QB, QC, QD, or QE. You will select the assessment year for which you are downloading. You will select the acknowledgement of return against which you are downloading, and the PAN of the seller if it is under 194 IEA, then PAN of the landlord if it is under 194 IB, right? So these details are to be filled in. Again, then details of that deductor will get displayed. Who is the deductor? You need to confirm those details and click on the submit request. Once you submit that request, the acknowledgement message will be displayed. Once the request is submitted, you need to go to the downloads and then requested downloads. Right. So again, you will see the details. What is the status of your download? The status is available. Once that, so generally it is available.
So for 16B, the buyer of the property has to give the certificate to the builder, right?
Seller.
Seller.
It might be builder or any other
builder,
person.
whatever. So we have to download as a C, and we have to download it, and we have
form
to give
16B is to be issued to the seller.
Seller. Yes.
So, but one important thing is here: 16B, 16C, 16D. We need not to have a utility. To extract those forms, we need not to have utility. You just download those on that zip file, and to extract the forms from zip file, you need to mention the date of birth of buyer. Then the form will get extracted. Okay. So only this is the difference in entire process. Otherwise, the process is same. Website is same. The every other details and same. Right. So this was about your chapter. But one thing I'm not sure the details of your form 27D are not mentioned in your chapter, right? So I'll just give a brief note. Yeah. So for TCS certificate, it is form 27D. What is the due date? 15 days from the date of filing of TCS return, right? For Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. It will be 30th July, 30th October, then 30th January, then 30th May. So this is for TCS certificate. Okay. Form is 27D, and these are the due dates. The process is same. The process to download from the portal remains the same. So I think we have covered everything in the class. We'll just have a recap in the 5 minutes, and we can take up the doubts. So basically the class was about what is TDS certificate, what is TCS certificate. So this is nothing but a proof of tax deduction or collection. TDS certificates are nothing but a proof of tax deduction or collection, which are issued by a deductor to deductee. It is not the choice of deductor to issue, but it is mandatory for him to issue the TDS certificate. It is not the choice of deductor, but it is mandatory for him, because it will only then the proof for the deductee basis which they can claim this tax credit in their income tax return. So it is a mandatory component.
How the penalty or consequences will be imposed on the failing of downloading or submitting the TDS certificates to the deductee? What is the method they will follow it.
I will just complete this revision and then I'll take up the doubts.
Yes.
So again, so it is a proof of tax deduction collection. Then deductor has to issue these certificates to the deductee, and it is a mandatory process. And again, these are to be downloaded and issued from Traces portal, which is TDS CPC portal, right? Now coming to TDS certificate 16, 16A, 16B, 16C, 16D, 16. So it was against 24Q, it was against 26Q, 27Q, it was against 26QB, 26QC, 26QD, and then 26QE. So it is to be issued annually by 15th of June. These are to be issued quarterly, 15 days from the date of filing of TDS return. So these are to be issued monthly, 45 days from the end of the month in which tax is deducted, right? So this was TDS certificate, and TCS certificate is to be issued Form 27D against TDS return filed in Form 27EQ, 15 days from the date of filing of TCS return, and frequency is quarterly. So these are the dates to issue TCS certificate. Now, how to download? There were 3-step process. First one was to submit request. To submit the request, you need to go to the Traces portal, then go to the download section, then submit request. Request was submitted either through digital signature or normal KYC. Right. Once the request is submitted, you need to download that PDF generation and extraction utility. Then you can click on the downloaded forms, and these can be extracted through those utility, right? So what details come on those certificates? Basically, they are deductor details, is PAN, then what is the period for which TDS is deducted, what is the quarter, then details of the deductee. What are the details of the deductee? His PAN number, what is the amount paid to him, what is the TDS deductor, under which section the TDS is deducted, by which challan number the TDS is deposited. So all these details are mentioned on the TDS certificate. Then what if someone makes a non-compliance? Then there is a penalty under 272 capital A of 100 rupees per day. So this is all about issuing TDS certificate, and how we have covered, I think, what were the learning points of today's class. So these were the initially we have written down what we will learn after the class. I think you all must have understood by now what is TDS certificate, what are the types of TDS certificates, what are the time limits, what are the consequences, and how to issue those TDS or TCS certificates. So this is all about today's chapter. Now if there are any doubts, we can take it. Yes.
Yes, sir. See, the TDS certificates, if the deductor fails to download it, that's what your consequences will be 100 rupees per day. That's what you said, no? How the government will come to know he didn't download it?
So let's take an example. Taxman was supposed to deduct TDS of Ridhima, right? But mistakenly they have mentioned my PAN number. they have mistakenly mentioned my PAN. That TDS certificate has been issued to me. Now Ridhima has not received the TDS certificate, and she is also not able to claim the credit of that tax in her income tax return because the TDS certificate is not issued. But in case she has, since the taxes has already been deducted by Taxmann, even in this case, she claimed that tax credit in her income tax return. Right. Now demand will arise against the Ridhima that this TDS is not reflecting against your PAN number. Right. Now she will tell to her assessing officer that there is a company called Taxmann. They have deducted my TDS. See, they have made me the less payment and they were supposed to deposit that. Then the assessing officer, based on the request of Ridhima, can issue a letter to the Taxmann. Where are your TDS certificates? Why you have not issued the TDS certificate to the Ridhima? Since you have deducted the tax, it was your responsibility to deposit, to file the TDS return, and to issue those TDS certificates. So there is possibility you have made the non-compliance of all these things, right? So they will levy the penalty for the non-payment as well. They will levy the penalty for non-filing of TDS return as well. They will levy the penalty for non-issuance of TDS certificate. So this is just one of the way. There can be any other way by which the department can get the information that TDS certificates have not been issued to the taxman by the taxman. Sorry. So by the taxman, in all cases, they will issue a show cause notice that we have received the information that you have not issued the TDS certificate to the deductor. Please tell us why the penalty should not be levied upon you. So the taxman needs to give the justification that, sir, we have issued the TDS certificate, or in case we have not issued, why we have not issued. So if their replies are not satisfactory to the assessing officer, then definitely he can levy the penalty.
You have given the example, no? This Tarun and Ridhima. The wrongly they have issued the certificate, right? In this case, before the due date, if the taxman comes to know what, whether they can revise it or they can,
yes,
any
they can
possibility to change it.
So basically the taxman has definitely issued TDS certificate, but wrongly issued to the Tarun. Yes. Why this certificate is wrongly issued to the Tarun? Because the PAN of Tarun was mentioned in the TDS return.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Because TDS certificates are not issued manually, they are downloaded from the Traces portal, and these certificates are downloaded based on that return file. Right. So certificates is downloaded based on that return file. So since now they have to, they come to know that mistake, and Ridhima has requested them that, sir, my TDS certificate has not been issued. So now in this case, the taxman will check the
verify
TDS
that.
return. What was the reason that TDS certificate of Ridhima is not downloaded from the portal? Right, since certificates were downloaded, then while checking, they will come to know that, yeah, wrongly we have mentioned the PAN number of Tarun. Right. So they will file a correction statement. They will correct their form 26Q. They will correct their form 26Q, and then after filing that correction, that TDS will get started reflected against the PAN number of Ridhima. And
for this due date, is there so any time limit is there?
So there is actually no time limit. There is actually no time limit to file the correction statement, but in any case, it should be filed before the Ridhima is filing her income tax return, right? Only then she will be able to claim the benefit of that tax.
Everything between June 15th, right? Everything before June 15th, it should be.
So, so for personal income tax filing, the due date is 31st of July. 31st so Ridhima has to file her TDS income tax return in 31st July. So for example, she gets time in this weekend that she check all the records that Taxman's TDS is not reflecting in my 26 years, and neither they have issued me TDS certificate. She will request to Taxman. They will check. They will file a correction statement, and after filing correction statement, they will download a certificate. Then, even in my case, I'll go to so far. In my case, the last year the due date was 31st December. I was filing my TDS return. It was about 2 days before the due date of filing the income tax return. I checked that one TDS was not reflecting in my 26 years. I went to that deductor. Sir, this TDS is not coming. How I'll claim this tax credit? He said they checked the records and they found that they have mentioned someone else PAN against that record. So he requested me, sir, since you are very near the due date of filing income tax return, what you do? You file your income tax return. We will file a correction statement, and if you claim it in your income tax return, by meantime our TDS return will be processed. right? Then that TDS credit will be allowed to you. But I didn't take that much risk. I not claimed that TDS in my income tax return, so any mismatch notice does not come to me. And once he filed a correction statement and issued me TDS certificate, I filed my revised income tax return. Right.
Okay.
So that was the best way I adopted for. Even in my case that happened last year's return only. So that's how you can proceed. So there are practical solutions to all these problems. So you
Yes,
can.
sir. Yes, sir.
So if there is any other doubt. Cynthia, if there is anything else, we can take that up.
Okay, so class, do you have any more doubts?
So everyone, today's
I
birthday.
have to
Cynthia,
study, sir. Then
she
if
coordinates
any.
this. So today's her birthday, I think. Happy birthday, Cynthia.
Oh,
Thank
happy
you,
birthday,
sir.
Cynthia.
Thank you so much, sir. Actually we celebrated today in office, but
Very nice.
my birthday was on 13th of July.
Okay, okay.
Oh,
I just
okay.
saw the picture today, so I think it was.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Sir, if any query arises, will inform to Taxmann, sir.
Yes, you can inform to Taxmann or
After completing
academic
this
coordinator.
entire,
You can
after
inform to
completing,
Ridhima. I think they have kept the last class for me and Ridhima to take up any income tax related doubt.
Yes,
so
sir.
you can note those down, your doubts, and we will take up in that last doubt class.
Definitely, sir. We'll have some revise or class or summary classes something in end of the course, sir, so that it will be easy for us to revise the course for the exams. That will be better for us.
I'm not sure whether they are providing that for my
Even
classes.
for
You can watch
GST
last
also
5,
we
10 minutes.
requested, sir. Even for GST also we requested that.
Okay.
If it is there, that will be beneficial.
If they are
for
providing
us.
that is well and good. But for my classes, I think in each class I have summarized in last 5-10 minutes. You can go and recap that. If they can cut that portion and post it into for the revision class, even I think that will work. I need not to record that again. Correct. I have done that part already. Yes, even if that is required, I'll do that. In any case, you can submit your concerns and requests to that Cynthia or Ridhima. We will do that.
Yes, sir. Definitely.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Thank you, sir.